I'm Carrie Sudbury, Chief Executive of the Barnsley and Rotherham Chamber of Commerce, and it's my pleasure to introduce this episode of the Knowledge and Skills Cast. Delivered by the South Yorkshire Chambers of Commerce, this podcast is a continuation of much of the thinking, research and insight that went into the production of our local skills improvement plan. Like in that groundbreaking document, we will be looking at what needs to be done to help our region truly maximise its potential when it comes to workforce and talent, whilst also helping you get to grips with the big changes that are happening in relation to skills across Doncaster, Sheffield, Barnsley and Rotherham. Each episode we will be hearing from leading experts and industrious South Yorkshire organisations who have really made a name for themselves in this space, whether that's through their modern HR practices, smart recruitment tactics or progressive attitudes towards people development. Spanning a wide range of different industries, these professionals will be sharing their experiences, the challenges they've overcome and the winning strategies that have made them such success stories. So whether you're just starting up in business, or looking for fresh insights, or simply curious to go behind the scenes of some well-known local employers, there's bound to be something here in the Knowledge and Skills Cast that grabs your attention. Get ready to be inspired as we shine a spotlight on leading regional businesses and the skills revolution happening in South Yorkshire.
Hi everyone, welcome to our second Knowledge and Skills Cast. I'm Nikki Jones from the University of Sheffield's AMRC Training Centre. And today we will be focusing on advances in the transport and logistics sector. I'm thrilled to be joined by two wonderful and very experienced individuals from this sector. Adrian Sullivan from Past Logistics and Nick Allman from Hybrid Air Vehicles. So guys, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm absolutely thrilled to speak to you. I've been excited for the last couple of days over this. Just some questions then to get us started. So can you introduce your business, what it does, and your own role within it? And then describe how your business approaches people development and training and what makes it stand out from the crowd in this area.
Yeah, of course. I'm Adrian Sullivan. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Past Logistics. Our business is a logistics company. And when I say logistics, we offer road haulage, we offer storage, we offer time-critical deliveries, and we offer a rail solution to move products and goods around the UK. So we are a company that likes to offer solutions to our customers. We like to hear of their problems, hear of the way they may be getting charged extra money along the supply chains, put a solution in ourselves or put a solution in with a partner and try and understand how we can help people's businesses flow a little bit more by saving costs. So that's really how we do. And then we have an operational background and we have a great team operationally who'll make that happen and deliver upon customers' SLAs. Also, we'll have a finance team to make sure that the business is run financially sound, whether it's credit limits, whether it's insurance, whether it's payment terms, whether it's the right purchase order numbers on invoices. So we try and give the full turnkey solution and service to a customer, not just operationally but also in other aspects as well. So but my role in there is to really be the entrepreneur, be the leader of the business, try and go the extra mile for solutions for customers, try and lead with them solutions, be the passionate person that goes and sees the customers and goes and promotes and pushes the business. Make sure my team are doing what we say we're going to do, and be a visionary, really. So that's my role within the business, which I take very seriously. A big part of our business is to make sure that our leaders and our managers are lead by example. Either that's within their experience or just having the values that we want in people who work for Past Logistics. You know, the care values, the value to communicate, the value to contribute, the family values, you know, which is very important to us as regards to why our staff work and why they want to do well. So people development comes very much internally, and trying to grow our staff internally via coaching and training on a one-to-one or a daily basis within the role. As you can appreciate, a business which is an SME and 35 strong, you know, to take somebody out of the business and send them on training or whatever, it can it can cost us as regards to taking a person out of the business. So that can be difficult, and that is challenging. Like I say, people have always dealt with people, right? And the relationships we have with our customers has to be earned through trust. And in business, that trust is earned over time, and it's over a multiple work, jobs or whatever. To really get a chance to work with somebody is the hardest part. But once you do that, and doing what you say you're going to do, and making people aware of mistakes or things that may happen, we're in a world where road haulage, sea, air, whatever it may be, there's other factors in there. So it's communication to the customers and being able to communicate what kind of problem we have but what solution we're going to put in place. So I feel we stand out from the crowd on a lot of the sometimes just basics, but the basics work, right?
Thank you very much. Very impressive. Right, same to you now then, Nick.
So I'm Nick Allman. I'm Chief Operating Officer at Hybrid Air Vehicles. Hybrid Air Vehicles being the company behind a new type of greener aircraft called Airlander. And it's green not only in how the emissions as it flies, but also in the amount of ground infrastructure it needs. So it's a visionary product, and one day Adrian's going to be operating some Airlanders built in South Yorkshire, based wherever he wants in the world. So it's what you're hearing today is two very different angles on the same sort of arena. We're very much looking to provide a product that provides a commercially successful opportunity for people to move people and things. But building that business is the job that's in front of us. So we sit here today, a team of about 60 people, not currently based in South Yorkshire. But I'm sure many of you will know that we intend to be based in South Yorkshire. Whole production will be here in Doncaster. So in front of us is a project not only to design and build the aircraft, but also to go from a business of 60 to a business of 500, 1,000 people, which is a massive project. So luckily, like Adrian, I've got a really good team, which makes life substantially easier. And we're really, really looking forward to being based up here. The question about our approach to people development, our approach to training, I think I might start a little bit further back, in that I really believe that the whole transport sector is a really exciting place for people to work and be involved. And I think there are many reasons for this, but the pressures on this whole sector from the pressures of climate change, but also the pressures, the rate of change in how things work in the world, means that we have to be exceptionally flexible. We have to be innovative, creative, and permanently challenging the current ways of thinking. And I think for many people leaving school or wherever they are in their education, looking for somewhere where they're going to be challenged, you might not initially think of that transport sector, but it is already and is going to become more and more challenging, and hence the opportunities there are broad and wide, deep. It's a massive area of opportunity. The key for us being able to effectively look after our people, give people the opportunity that they need to grow, is to create that growing and dynamic business, and that then leads to huge opportunities for individuals. Also, in a growing environment, you can actually adapt roles to suit people. You can add elements to roles to challenge them. And so our overall approach is to add a level of flexibility and creativity to allow people to grow. And the other thing, a lot of what Adrian was saying about values, are you going to hear through the next hour, however long it is, you're going to hear values brought up quite a lot. I think both of our organisations use values to underpin decision-making and behaviours in our businesses, and that's what is behind who we are. What we've also done to take that a little further, we've changed from having a human resources function, which we've put in the past, and moved to a people and culture function. And that's not just a rebadging. That's putting our people and the development of our people and the development of our culture at the centre of how we do business. The people and culture director sits on our executive team and just ensures that we manage the business in a way that really does put people in the middle.
That's a great segue into my next set of questions. Well, I just wanted to say, when I was doing a little bit of research, you may call it stalking, but both companies, although very different, that came across strong, the values of the organisation, the importance of people development, opportunities. But what an exciting sector. I mean, it's so great. And I think that we've got to get much better in advertising that fact, in marketing that fact, to show people the opportunities that there are in this sector. I think we undersell the kind of the exciting kind of roles and part you play in all this. So I want to ask you some questions about some specifics now around skills. So from your perspective, and I'll go back to Adrian on this to start with. From your perspective, in the transport logistics world, what does the skills landscape currently look like? So are there any highly sought-after skills, and are there any that are in short supply? Is training provision meeting your needs? And what are the biggest challenges facing you at the moment?
I mean, in haulage, for instance, obviously trucks are moving across the world. Predominantly trucks that are coming into the UK maybe are moving across the UK and Europe. The lorry drivers are starting to retire, and it's pretty much of an aged skill for the lorry drivers, to be honest, and the number of shortages to lorry drivers is growing year on year for the demand. So that skill is definitely becoming shorter and shorter, and is a worry.
Thank you, Adrian. So, question to you.
Two broad needs for large numbers of people. One is in the sort of the engineering field, that being all the way from design through to support, and the other is in the manufacturing assembly. In the engineering world, the aerospace, which is where we're going to be pulling some of our skills from, just as a bit of background, our aircraft, although very different, still has to meet all the regulatory safety requirements for any other large aircraft. So having some of our team being well educated in the aerospace field is very important, but we also need to pull people from other areas to ensure that we're suitably creative. That aerospace world, I'll admit I'm now nearly 61. I started working in British Aerospace a very long time ago. I never expected to leave the building that I was in when I started work. And obviously there were, I think at the site I was at, there were 8,000 people at that site, and we were twinned with another site in Hatfield, which had, I think, 11,000. That's gone. So overall, we feel more like a pioneering business, weirdly, even though, so 50 years ago, we'd have been part of many businesses building whole aircraft. There aren't any. So we're looking for people in a smaller pool, and there is no doubt that pool is shrinking, and that's meaning we're looking wider and wider and being more open to bringing people from motorsport, for example, is the most obvious one. Obviously, the UK is massive in motorsport, a lot of very similar skills.
Oh, no, see, I wouldn't know about that. That's a surprise to me, but yeah, makes sense.
Apologies, I'm a Formula One fan. If you look back 20 years in Formula One, cars were not very reliable. Whereas obviously look at an aircraft and it has to be phenomenally reliable. You look at a Formula One car now, Formula One cars fail very occasionally. So their attention to detail and quality and the whole systems engineering behind a Formula One car is now at sort of aerospace levels. The other advantage they have is they build a whole new car every year. So that development cycle is very rapid, which gives those people a lot of experience. So that's just one example where you need to look for associated areas and where you can put those skills together with other skills and create the right. A little bit further down track, we're obviously going to be assembling aircraft, and for that, we should be able to, because we've got a little bit of time to build the workforce to do that, we should be able to have a nice mixture of actually training people straight from UTC all the way through to taking people from many different areas. So I really hope to bring a large number of high-quality jobs to that Doncaster area.
It's all happening in South Yorkshire, isn't it? What a place to be. The best place to be, she says, with a Welsh accent. But you know what? I've been here 30 years. I feel like I'm as much South Yorkshire as I'm and everybody's welcomed me here, so I'm very grateful for that. So my next question then, and it kind of follows on and it covers some of the stuff you've just been talking about, actually. So how do you think the transport industry has advanced in recent years, Adrian? Is that down to new technologies, advances in vehicles, AI, or what do you think? Because there's been massive changes, isn't there?
Yeah, there's been big changes on the advancement of the internet, if you like. Obviously, logistics, transport is a very, very big sector, right from moving containers via sea, moving freight on road, moving freight by air, moving freight by haulage vehicles or even vans, wherever it may be. So it's a very interesting and wide sector to get involved with. Some of the advances are being able to see vehicles all over the country. Part of our business is that we can see vehicles anywhere from the length of breadth of the UK right up to the end of Scotland, Inverness, right down to Plymouth. So we can see vehicles from a small van to an Arctic vehicle all over the UK. And the advances in technology and advances in tracking and the advances in the TMS and POD systems, things like that, being able to give you live proof of deliveries, so you can almost create sustainability now by finding vehicles that are close to any collection points, rather than me sending an Arctic lorry from Doncaster to pick up in Plymouth and deliver to Inverness. I can now see other people and utilise other people's space, which enables me to be more sustainable, it enables me to be cost effective. But the administration behind it as well is clean and crisp, so I can deliver what the customer needs. So that's a big part of an advanced in technology. Obviously, the transport management system enables drivers to monitor how the drivers are driving, whether it's the fuel consumption, things like that, the fuel efficiency. So that definitely helps a lot. AI, let's see where that goes. The logistics industry, transport industry that I'm involved with is still very old school. It's still very effective, but it's an effective way that's not the most sustainable or not the most quickly changing, because it's expensive. But we need to get goods to and from. We can't say, hey, let's hold on moving them goods for a year till we advance in sustainability. That won't work.
Thank you. And Nick, I know you started talking about the changes that you've seen over the years. But is there anything around the sort of changes in technology, and has AI played a factor in that?
Not yet for us. It's very controversial, but the AI at the moment produces the apparent high quality information with very, very difficult for a human to know how high the quality actually is. So it appears to a human to be high, but it doesn't necessarily. So it doesn't really fit with our need to understand why everything looks like it does. So it can be used in some areas. The bigger drivers are the changes in the pressures that we're being asked to absorb. So, and the drive to reduce carbon emissions really is behind so many of the things that we're doing. That's meaning that businesses that could be, I won't say fat and happy, but I have done that, but relatively stable and thinking they're doing okay because they're doing a good job standing still. In reality, anybody who thinks they're doing well standing still is kidding themselves, because they're actually falling behind, because other people are moving forward and the world's changing fast. So again, having thought about this before this podcast, I think the theme for me is being ready for a world that is constantly changing, and being ready for that to be what you have to live with. What you know today, you have to use, but in a slightly different context tomorrow. And that is the same again the next day and the same again the next day.
Just I want to explore that a little bit before I go on to the next question. But what was clear to me was that kind of reducing emissions and things like that were kind of critical to a climate policy, that kind of thing. probably use the wrong terminology, but you know what I'm trying to say. That struck me as being really kind of key for you both, and for lots of organisations that I work with at the AMRC Training Centre. What advice would you give sort of somebody starting a business or in a business that wants to make that transformation where green and emissions, reducing emissions are key? Because everything I've heard, I'm not an expert in this area, but just talking as a layperson, people say it's really expensive, it's hard to do. What kind of 2 or 3 things would you tell an employer to, give advice to an employer?
If somebody was starting a business today, I'd look to be on that plan. I mean, we've learned, from a business, sustainability. It's not just about having an economic truck. It's about where do we put as rubbish, where we're putting as bottles and as everything that's in the office. So, monitoring what kind of waste and where the waste is going and how it's being picked up, right? Because we all do the right things at home, but are we doing the right things at work? So being green and being sustainable starts really from your scope 1, and that scope 1 is, your waste, your lighting, the basic things, and then looking at. So I think probably to understand what scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 are, and to say to yourself, what is it? Where do I fall in line with that? And speaking to professionals in that sector to help you understand what carbon you're affecting, not just creating, but affecting across the scopes, and saying to yourself, how do I plan to control that and reduce it? And let's remember it can start off small, but it's first of all being aware of what it is right from the scope 1s, 2s and 3s.
Yeah, that's really good advice, because I think that it's kind of all-consuming, isn't it? If you're a small business or you're a new business just starting out, it's where to start. So I think that kind of scope 1, 2, 3 is a really good way of looking at it. Start small and then really kind of understand where you're placed in all that. So
think of the audience. I don't want to be accused of grandmothers and sucking eggs and things, but there's the values element of understanding who you are, but there's the other element is understanding very clearly what your business objective is. So the why you're doing things, understand that really, really clearly, then it enables you to make good decisions. There's no doubt that in a world where everybody's there are many other pressures, but we'll take the pressure around emissions. It's knowing which things you're actually going to do. So am I going to change all the light bulbs in the building to LEDs, or am I actually going to make all my employees drive electric cars? Whatever it is, deciding where you're going to draw lines quite hard. So going back to what is my key business objective here? Why am I adapting to this change in context? Often it gives you that and your values. Put those 2 things together and you generally get a sensible answer.
Absolutely brilliant advice. I think any business could take that on board and work with that. And thank you very much. So back to the questions then. How do you think we should be preparing the next generation of talent so that it better meets the needs of business within your industry? So Adrian, I'll go back to you.
I mean, I've spoke to over 2,000 children in the Doncaster area in various different schools, tried to raise aspirations. Yeah. Being from Doncaster myself and coming through the schooling system, trying to look for career and falling into a career and one thing and another. I think it's very important that local businesses get involved with this in schools. That just doesn't have to be in logistics, and could be across a number of different sectors. And I think it's very, very valuable for the children to be able to be in front of people who are actually in business or working for a business, to ask the questions. What's it like there? What do you do there? What is logistics? Hey, you're from a logistics company. Oh, right, so I have to be a lorry driver. Actually not. You can be involved in customs and export. You can be involved in...
Key person. You could be the marketing person.
Yeah.
Be the HR person.
Yeah. So sometimes it's so helpful. My son's 15. He doesn't know what he wants to do when he leaves school, but that's okay. But being able to have somebody in front of you that you can ask a few questions, you can fire a few things, that's not your parents, or whatever. I found it so valuable, so valuable to get in front of them children.
I completely agree. I found myself thinking that I was trying to go back to first principles, and I think one of the things that people need to understand as early as they can in their lives is what makes them happy. You know, what is it that makes you feel rewarded? What is it that you can do that makes you feel like you're applying your talent? Because I'm sure we've all managed people who haven't understood that yet, and it's very difficult to help those people. It's very difficult to give them the right challenges at the right time. So the earlier that people can understand what it is, and it isn't being promoted as fast as possible, it probably isn't earning more money. Those things are generally not the things that make you happy. So I know it sounds a little odd, but I think the more that we can do to get people rounded in a way where they know who they are, you can then really work with those people. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, I think that understanding what business needs, and if you go back to the sort of overall point, I feel that this is an area where there's massive opportunity because there's massive change, and there always will be. Then I feel that one of the fundamental things that we need is to be creative. Be creative and innovative. You need to be not frightened of failure. Now, that doesn't mean that you similarly don't understand that you still need to avoid failure where possible. You can't be frightened of failure. And understanding, if you put that together with an understanding of learning and continual improvement, then in a business, if you have people who are prepared to put their hand up and go, do you know I haven't done that yet, but I really want to give it a go, and a system around them that looks after them, and when they don't quite get it right, says, tell you what, just nudge that a bit to the right or left, that creates this innovative, creative environment which allows the business to then flex with the changes that are around it. So I think if you could have people coming out of a education system who knew who they were, and they weren't trying to get things wrong, but they did understand the benefit of getting things right.
This is the second cast that I've done, and in both casts we were talking about and I mentioned it at the start, the need to inform young people about the sectors, what the job is, what they're going to be doing, and then helping them to identify what it is they like to do. And I think that, we expect our teachers in schools to know all these things about the sectors, and I kind of always ask the question, well, why would they? They've not been in that sector themselves. So we try to work really hard with the schools so that the teachers, first of all, can understand the different sectors, so they're better informed, but then encourage employers. And a lot of my employers, they do spend time in schools, just as you've done, in front of young people, just so that they understand what the sector is, what the roles are, what the potential is. And you're right, the opportunities are vast. It's such a kind of fast-paced, moving sector with jobs, as we mentioned, from the HR, the digital, right through to the logistics and drivers, engineers, you name it. It's there, isn't it? The breadth is there. But I'm not sure whether we, as training providers, whether we are doing enough to inform through careers and things like that. And, we can't do everything. And I think the career services have got a part to play in this. But employers and training providers of kind of post-16 education really need to work closely with their employers, in my view, to ensure that young people understand the opportunities there are in the various different sectors. And I think there's more work to do on that.
It's very difficult to find where somebody may fall in and where they may suit, and they may never find it. There's definitely a responsibility of the person to try and understand for themselves what they love, what they enjoy, what they are passionate about, what sparks their interest. And that definitely helps with the likes of ourselves going into schools and talking to children and trying to help them understand that. We can't do it all. You guys can't do it all. So there's definitely some onus on trying to find their own way and their own guidance.
That collaboration with schools, Nick, I don't know what you think, but the collaboration with schools and getting better information to our young people so that they know the careers that are involved. Even when I'm talking to my apprentices now before they come, it's, do they want to sit at a desk all day and design things? Do they want to make things? Do they want to machine things and make them? Do they want to maintain things? Those, getting that, trying to get those young people to understand what they would be doing on a day-to-day, because it is day-to-day, isn't it? They're going to be doing this from morning till night, and they've got to love doing it. And that's really difficult to get across to young people. But if we could get that right, and they get the kind of what are opportunities there are with the various different sectors, I think that would be a good place to work. On another note then, if you could change anything about the regions or the skills system that we've got today, what would that be?
I think that the region skills system, as I've seen for people who are currently in work as well, I think it's excellent. I think there's so many great things out there, masterclasses, and obviously they are subsidised as well. Challenges for a business like ours is taking staff out of work to be able to go onto these courses. Yes, very valuable. Yes, it will bring extra skills into the business, but it's very difficult for a company like ours to take somebody out to do that skill and to train under that skill. I don't really hear or see many people coming in to talk to our staff about it, for sure. Is there a way that people can get around the chambers and around the companies actually saying, Mr. Business Owner, Mr. or Mrs. Business Owner, or Mr. or Mrs. person who's going to do the training courses, actually we can make it easier to do it this way? There's an open learning, and I'm sure there is, but how do we make sure that people can get upskilled without it really hurting the business too much?
I've got something to kind of share with you, but anything from you. So what's the skill? If you could change the skill system at the moment, what would you?
So obviously we're not yet in the region, but I think it may be worth just sharing why we're coming to the region, because it's relevant here. And I think we looked around the UK and around the world, and one of the things that came across from South Yorkshire as a whole was this burning and consistent desire across many, many bodies from many different angles to create high-quality jobs so that either their children or their friends' children wanted to stay in the region. It isn't like that everywhere. It isn't. You don't go to different place after different place and come across the same story. Now, obviously, AMRC is an extraordinary story. It's an extraordinary story of regeneration, not just the not just the skills and things that develop there. The UTC, we work closely with Doncaster UTC in particular, running projects there to help inspire students. But I think so. The message I think I would give is, don't underestimate what you've got and how hard it must be to get to that point, and look after it and keep nurturing it and keep improving it. Just
a couple of things just to, so we do, I think, I'm very proud of being here in South Yorkshire, and I do think we've got something special, the ecosystem that we talk about at the Advanced Manufacturing Park, but wider than that, I sit on the principals group with the colleges, and we're part of an Institute of Technology as part of the 2 universities and all the colleges. And, we work as a South Yorkshire provider network. So we all the education providers in the region are really motivated. There's a real passion and a real drive to hide the wiring for people and employers to say, well, what can we offer? What should our curriculum look like across the whole of South Yorkshire, and how can we ensure that people can access that at a time that suits the business, suits the individual, but means maybe that they don't have to travel all over the place. So, we've got a local skills improvement plan, and that's been supported from DFE funds for Local Skills Improvement Fund. And we're all looking at immersive classrooms. So you could be sitting in Doncaster and you could you could go into our immersive classroom at the AMRC Training Centre and vice versa. So we are looking at how do we offer the the wonderful apprenticeships, the T levels, that provides all that work experience in readiness for young people. But also, how can we address the skills needs of employers? Those short, sharp things that might mean is required for. We're kind of really fighting hard. There's an increase in our skills bank now. We're looking at that, and with a new government looking at the changing of the apprenticeship levy to a growth and skills levy, which means that we should be able to access more skills development. Again, everything feels as though it's going in the right direction. It feels like there's light at the end of that kind of tunnel. But I do think that South Yorkshire's particularly strong in its collaboration. So I'm really pleased that particularly you're Doncaster, aren't you? So
yep.
You've seen the good stuff. But for you to come in and to pick us after looking worldwide is quite a special message for us all, isn't it? Yeah, thank you very much. So then, what's the plan for your business over the coming 2 to 5 years? What's the role of training and development in achieving those aims?
We want to bring more services to Past Logistics, make us more sustainable in our transportation and in our full operation, really. Now, obviously, with the training comes other roles as regards to customs and air and sea, being able to bring people in who are probably already experienced in that. As I said, a lot of our training is done through internal coaching and bringing people who are experienced into the business in certain sectors of logistics, as I've mentioned, air and sea. Then we would bring people in to train underneath that. We do offer apprenticeships. We have had apprentices who have come through and successfully passed their apprenticeships and work with Past Logistics still. Some for 4, 5, 6 years have stayed with us. Wow. I've seen 2 apprentices particularly buy a house and they've come in as apprentice.
That's amazing. I love that. I love seeing that. I love them settling in the region, buying their house, having their families. It's just amazing.
It is. And like you say, it's offering apprenticeships to people who are leaving school, who are unsure which way to go, want a purpose, want some independence, and probably just want to work with a bunch of people who they're going to be appreciated with and make friends.
Being part of that family is...
Yeah, make friends and be part of something. So it's great to bring people into the business where we can give them that sense of enjoyment and sense of achievement. So that's the plan for the business, to keep bringing apprentices in, keep bringing apprenticeships in and getting them to learn and be coached from people who have probably already been there and done it a little bit,
Yeah, obviously our next 2 to 5 years are a little bit big for us, and hopefully for the region in the medium term. So there isn't anything that we don't have in front of us. So whether it's creation of facilities or management of a facility, whether we're creating a whole team to do flight testing, there are so many strands, but that's all in front of us. And as I said earlier, it provides a potential place for people to be where they're going to be for the foreseeable future, limitless opportunities to be challenged and try things.
Oh, so exciting. Both of your organisations, so excited. So I'm going to pick your brains now on some HR practices, because I know you've got some great practices. So can you provide an overview of your organisation's recruitment processes from initial job postings to the final candidate selection? So if it's a big process, pull out some points now?
Not really too big. As I've mentioned, people coming into our business with a certain set of skills who can maybe add a service or bring some kind of extra talent to the company. Yes, we do need to go out and employ people for a role, but if somebody comes along and they said, hey, can I come and work at Past Logistics? This is what I've been doing for the past 20 years, great, come in and you can bring something to the company for sure. And then when we need to employ somebody in a role that we need, we do go to on Indeed, we do go to recruitment companies, we do go to the chamber, Doncaster, Business Doncaster, and look for apprentices. So it all depends on what that role is, because, you know, most important thing is that somebody's going to do a really good job, and then we're going to reward them for that, and then they're going to feel fulfilled and they're going to help the business grow. So if that's somebody in an apprentice role that we can bring through in accounts or in operations, wonderful if that role suits. But if it's more of a senior role that's needed, we'll have to go out and headhunt or find the right person. So it does depend on where that role is as to where we would go. But we always look to employ people who are around where we are, our area, you know, and really, I always look to understand their purpose. I want to know what they want to achieve personally as well as in business, and just trying to help them reward what they want to achieve personally, whether it's an apprentice working to buy a house or whether it's somebody more senior looking to, I don't know, towards a retirement or move home or whatever. I like to understand what's driving people.
I think that's important. I think that's the key. Rather, you know, the processes sort of happen, don't they? But it's looking at that person holistically and ensuring that they fit your organisation, I think is kind of the key thing. We talked about this a little bit earlier on, Nick, so I don't know if you want to add to...
Yeah, I mean, I think similarly, think back, I've chosen people in a 15-minute phone interview while I was in an airport. You can sometimes tell very quickly, but that isn't necessarily a very good process. And if you look at trying to ensure that you're selecting from as wide a group as possible and you're not ruling people out inadvertently, so one thing we're doing is we're making sure that we have a central group who work with any hiring manager to make sure that that hiring manager has really thought about what that role is. Are there some flexibilities in that role that could be built in? Could we train into that role? Also, though,
and ensuring that they're kind of you're considering sort of bias and things like that.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
So there's a front end. So you might say is almost before the recruitment process starts, where our recruiting team bring in best practice, if you like, in that whole thinking about what's the job. We then tend to, in the middle, we run a direct recruitment as well as through an agency. So we'll have our own website up and running with our own direct recruitment, so that bit, which is relatively conventional. And we're at the moment relatively conventional in our interviewing, two-stage interviewing. I think one of the things we do try and do, it's nice to see candidates under a slightly pressurized environment of an interview, but you've got to find a way of getting it under the skin of the candidate as well and getting them to relax and find, because you'd learn things. So there's that element. I think the other thing that we've focused on as well is sort of moving our recruitment team upstream. We've also made sure that they feel responsible not for getting somebody to accept a job offer, but for them to be operationally successful in 3-6 months' time. That's their job. Their job doesn't stop at the point of an offer. Because if you think about the relationship that the individual has on the way in, they've generally established a relationship with potentially the hiring manager, but also with the recruitment team.
I mean, we have an induction process, but I kind of like that. And I'd like to think that, you know, we've got some really good processes, but I really like that. I really like that idea.
And then we've got one other theme which I think is a bit unconventional, but we like to plan entirely on success. So we've done a number of detailed things, which mean we don't really focus so much on what happens if this goes wrong and this relationship isn't going to work, because those things can knock the edges off the excitement for the 99% who are going to be really good. So we've tried to detune the sort of those things that are really there for when things go wrong, and primarily focus on making sure we do a really good job with the 99%.
Yeah, again, it is all about that kind of mindset, though, isn't it? That culture, it does change people's behaviours. If you kind of that will change people's mindset.
Yeah, you need to remove this fear of failure, because the fear of failure caps your performance.
My next question then is around what strategies do you employ in terms of talent pipelining and succession planning? So, is there anything kind of you think about, Adrian, when you're thinking about the next generation, or how do you make sure that you're not going to lose that? You are succession planning, or are you not at that yet?
Yeah, no, I think obviously the business has been going 7 years, and it started with myself. So there's a range of people at different parts of their careers who work for us. Somebody who's further on in their career who've still got a lot to offer, and a lot of experience to bring, who can bring a very good, solid thought process. And then there's the younger generation that are a bit earlier on in their career, but with good experience, maybe had 10 years in work, and at that next stage in life where they want to make a lot of friends, they want to progress in the holiday choices or in their house choices and things like that. So I try and make sure people are rewarded in past logistics for doing well. People feel valued. Like I said before, I want to understand their purpose, and I want to understand what they want to achieve outside of work, and and I want to make sure that they feel valued and looked after. And then we have got people who worked in the business a long time to say it's only 7 years old. A lot of my staff, the amount of people that's been there over 3 years is a good number. Out of 35, I bet there's probably 20 plus that's been over there 3, 4, 5 years.
I need to stay by the looks of it.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are planning to stay. And they just love the story. They're part of the story. They're engaged, infectious. They love to help the business grow. And then when you bring other people in, and the right people, they young or whatever experience, they see that. These energetic people who just want the business to do well, but we hold each other accountable, for sure. We've got values, and if somebody needs to hold me accountable to one of the values, then they'll hold me accountable, So, so we try and just make sure we hold each other accountable as well to them values. And the right organisational chart, so people do understand that if there is a problem or something does need to be addressed with each other or another member of staff or whatever, the right organisation structure, especially in a smaller business like mine, is that people know where to go to.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to feel bullied. Yeah. I don't want anybody to feel like they can't talk, So there's always the right ways to be able to talk to someone if something needs to be addressed. So
open, transparent.
Yeah.
Comfortable, really pleasant place to work.
Yeah, we just want to value.
We feel like they're all valued, and that's key, isn't it?
Yeah, but make sure we've all got the common goal, and the common goal is to make the business successful, is to make it profitable, not profiteer, but just keep the business going for each other,
Thank you very much. So, any strategies you're employing to for talent pipelining and succession planning?
Just listen to Adrian. I think I'd love to work in his business, but similarly, I think if we'd done this the other way around, the words wouldn't have been identical, but the philosophy is the same. It's if you look after people and have a common objective, then there's no doubt as people get, politely more experienced, shall we say, the way that you can utilise that and the way that they're best deployed for themselves and the business changes. And you need an organisation that is structurally set up to allow people to move around and roles to be changed, to adapt. But you need everybody to be comfortable with that. And as long as everybody knows they're going to be looked after, they know that your door is open, and when they've got a problem, I bet they come through your door and go, I'm stuck here, or whatever. As long as that exists and everybody has the same purpose, then things like succession planning start to become like a natural thing. I used to have, if my one word for what I wanted it to be like in our business, and I'm sure many of my staff would say, well, that's ridiculous, but I haven't written it on the board behind me, is just to write the word fun, right? But I have adapted that recently with fun, but be kind.
I mean, it's enjoyment, isn't it? You need to enjoy yourself. You need to enjoy. You need to have fun, but be kind. I mean, if you can do nothing else, be kind. I always say that to my staff and to students. Be kind, because kindness isn't soft. Being kind sometimes means you have to give some difficult messages, actually. But it isn't always about saying you're perfect. It's about being constructive and honest sometimes, and that can be difficult. But you can do it in a way that gets the best of those individuals, that doesn't sort of undermine them, doesn't kind of destroy their confidence, but actually enables them to progress and to develop as individuals. And I think that's kind of the bottom line, really.
Being open about business performance. More obviously if it's doing well. I mean, if the business is declining, then let's not probably. We don't want to worry people, but you give a balanced message then.
Yeah. It's about them knowing, because they'll only kind of make it up in their mind if you don't share certain things. So
working hard and they're doing well for the company. Let's be a little bit more open about business performance. I remember somebody who I went to see, and a friend of mine, and he worked so hard for this particular company. To cut a long story short, I said to him, "What's the performance of the business through your hard work?" And he said, "Oh, I don't know." I said, "Do you know what your sales are?" "No." "Do you know what your profit is?"
Isn't it?
"No." "But you're working so hard. I can see that for the benefit of the people further up the chain, but you don't know what performance of the company is." So, yeah, I think that's something that I love to do, is try and empower people to know this is what you've helped us do.
So there's a couple of final questions, but before I go to the questions, there was something we were talking about earlier on that I just thought was important. We were talking about the skills that you would like young people to have just before we came in here today. We were talking about those softer skills, and one of the things that I was thinking as we were talking today was around young people having the resilience. So resilience was really something that came out in our conversations today. But Nick, you mentioned something about those softer skills that we need those young people to have.
I mean, and some of them we've touched on, really. The ability to try things. I do feel sometimes, looking at my own children as they went through school, they were encouraged to try things, but in a way where sometimes it didn't matter whether they got it wrong or right. But that's not the real world. It does matter whether you get it wrong or right, which is, and I came back to a similar theme here, but I think it's really important to understand that tension between, say, don't be frightened of getting it wrong, but do try to learn if it does go wrong, and help others do so. That tension, I think, creates we come back to resilience. I mean, there's a way of being more resilient. Now, if you're in an organisation that isn't going to absolutely come down on you if something goes wrong, but they are going to come down on you if you don't try and find a way of making it better next time. That's sort of what resilience is about. It's going through an experience, going, right, okay, I'm going to pick myself up, I'm going to do it again better. And then some of the project work, I mean, as I was mentioning, we do a project that seems to work very well at UTC, where we give them a kit of parts, and they have to make and surprisingly, they have to make a little airship. Project work like that, where people are working as a team. Again, I can't see that there's any downside in people understanding earlier the power of teamwork, and the fact that it's not about me showing that I'm great in this team. It is actually about the output of the team.
A strength in collaboration and evaluation, actually.
Yes. Because again, in a lot of like coursework in education, you're still competing against the people that you're collaborating with in one way or another. Or if you're not competing with them, you're disappointed by their performance or something. So I don't think there's enough about understanding what actual teamwork's all about, where it's about the team.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think, like I say, with teamwork, myself, I played football and I learned a lot through sport, and some of the soft skills or skills that you may learn growing up, as a child, whether it is through sport or, whatever it may be, teamwork is a big part of that. Resilience is a big part of that. The ability to adapt, the ability to... So sometimes these skills, going into the daunting world of work, how it could be, or the daunting world of university or whatever it's, or apprenticeships, there's some skills that people are already growing and already learned from, aren't they? I've found that. And one question, no matter how young or old you are or how experienced you are, questions. If I don't understand something, I've been in logistics 7 years, something mentioned the other day, and I saw 3 or 4 people nodding their head round that table, and I thought, you don't know what that is. So I really did.
No stupid questions.
Yes, I am.
It's no stupid question.
That's what my dad always said to me from a young age. No question is a stupid question. And I still go by that ethos now, and I learned so much. And remember, when you're going into the world of work, you might have no experience, but the people who are sat around you have probably got 100 years experience within that. So ask the questions, learn off others, develop off others. I came into logistics, like I said, no experience, but I knew 5 people who had 30 years between them, and it was a great way to learn. Great way to learn.
I find that I talk to some managers, engineering managers, and they say that they learn as much from the apprentices, because they've been doing it one way for many, many years, and the apprentices will say, oh, I learned this, and they say, oh yeah, well, we've changed a line because of that. I mean, that's great. I mean, that is just wonderful. But it's the value, isn't it, of having a learning organisation where experienced people will learn from new people, and new people will learn from the vast experience that those existing workforce can share. So I think it's about having that learning environment, actually, where people are happy to learn from mistakes and continuously improve. So my final question then, this has been absolutely brilliant, by the way. I've loved talking to you both today. What are you most proud of within your organisations?
I think really that most of what so I've been with the business since it was formed in 2007. I'm employee number 1 on my own. I think although I'm proud of a lot of things we've achieved technically, in reality, the living our values is at the middle of most of it. And understanding that what we're all chasing is a team win is, again, unbelievably powerful. And the people who've been successful in our business are those who've got that quickly and understand that we don't have their internal competition between individuals isn't a thing. I think that's probably, that culture is what I'm most proud of. I think so.
That's great. I think that's good advice as well for everybody. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jen, what about you?
The togetherness of everyone, and we being able to adapt through things that are out of our control, whether it's the Brexit, whether it was COVID, whether it's the economic downturn, being able to adapt together, being able to come together to find and to look of ways the business can grow, even things that are out of our control. So I'm really, really proud of the togetherness that we have throughout all different circumstances, if you like.
Just before we move on, your story is phenomenal, so you didn't expect to be where you are today, did you?
From the age of 17, I was in electrical wholesaling for 23 years. My dad saw an advert in the Doncaster Free Press. Probably about 1996. And I came home from a place I was just filling a job, working at a job at the time when I was 17, and he got me an interview. So I fell into that and spent 23 years in electrical wholesaling, yes, and coming towards the tender age of 40, the age of 39, I decided to take a total change.
Wow.
Yeah,
Can be done.
Bought a Volkswagen Crafter for £3,000. Jumped in my van. Decided to speak to people I know and just deliver. Get into logistics really. And I've always had a passion for learning off other people, learning off, being motivated on YouTube, listening to the likes of Warren Buffett, Brian Tracy, Jim Rohn, Tony Robbins, and the list goes on. And I've always been really engaged with people who have achieved something from nothing, and they've done it via learning from others, but also through their own motivation and desire to do well in life. So, yeah, that's been a big part of how I've got to where I've got to today.
I want to say thank you to our listeners for joining us today. I think we've heard from exemplar businesses in the transport and logistics industries. You've been fantastic, my guests today. I have loved talking to you. And you've shared such valuable knowledge, experience and your vision for the future. I really look forward to working with you both, as does, I'm sure, all the other providers in the region. From your discussions around the HR practices to the insights in attracting people for key positions, I think you've provided those invaluable perspectives that will undoubtedly inspire and inform our listeners. So thank you both very, very much. So as we conclude today's episode, we encourage our listeners to continue exploring and learning about this dynamic, wonderful landscape of this important industry. Be sure to tune in next time for more enlightening discussions on the Knowledge and Skills podcast. Until then, I'm Nikki Jones, and thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Knowledge and Skills cast. We hope that, like us, you found this to be fascinating discussions filled with useful insights and intriguing ideas about where our region is heading next when it comes to skills. As we wrap up each episode, I'd like to encourage you to also get involved with the conversation and to join us in celebrating those businesses that are innovating in our region. Whether it's by networking, engaging in their services, or simply spreading the word about the remarkable work they do, your support fuels the change happening in South Yorkshire. Please subscribe and share from whichever platform you're listening from today, and get involved with your local Chamber of Commerce as we strive to support the growth of skills in South Yorkshire.